Welcome to today's edition of Diplomatic Passport, where we give you our daily weekday updates on COVID-19 and the current affairs issues. But firstly, let's take a look at Zimbabwe's COVID-19 cases as of the latest data released to us by the Ministry of Health and Childcare. So Zimbabwe now has 4,221 confirmed cases, including 1,238 recoveries and 81 deaths. Now, 146 new cases have been recorded over the past 24 hours, and these are all local transmission cases who have been isolated to date as we hear. Now, to date, the cumulative number of people tested stands at 140,421. Harare is now still firmly the epicenter with 1,510 cases, followed by Bulawayo, which now has 529 cases of COVID-19. Today, of course, we regret to report the death of a 22-year-old male from Bulawayo province. Sad news, of course, there coming from the second largest city. Now, the 12th of June, the world celebrated the International Albinism Day. Now, this cause was led by Amnesty International, which called on Southern African governments to ensure the protection and well-being of persons living with albinism who are increasingly vulnerable, especially amidst the COVID-19 crisis, as lockdowns across the region hinder access to healthcare facilities and skin cancer clinics, as well as vital sunscreen centers. Now, Amnesty International also noted with concern that persons with albinism are at an increased risk of attacks for various issues around, of course, superstition. Now, this has been exacerbated, of course, during these lockdowns because they are locked down in insecure homes and communities with suspected perpetrators. Now, to help us discuss this touchy subject and these and other issues is a very strong woman who I've been following for a long time, Kudakwashe Masiwa, who is also an activist pushing for awareness on issues to do with albinism. Kuda, welcome to Diplomatic Passport.
Thank you, Robert.
Well, it's been a while of me trying to get a hold of you, but we couldn't really pin things down because of these lockdown restrictions. You were busy, we were busy, we were locked down, and it seems, COVID has gotten in the way of normal life. But even when we've got what we call normal life, the life of somebody living with albinism is not easy at all. Tell us about some of the challenges outside of COVID-19 that you'll be facing.
Oh, okay. In order to explain this, I think it is very important for me to explain what albinism is, just in short. Yeah. So albinism is a condition where I lack melanin, which means I have less to no pigmentation in my skin, in my eyes, and in my hair. Yes. So basically, I'm saying the affected parts of the body is only the eyes, the skin, and the hair. Albinism does not affect my intellectual capacity. Albinism does not affect my immune system. Yes. So in order for us to continue with this explanation, with this conversation, I just felt that it is very important to emphasize that. Absolutely. Yes. So in response to your question, I would say that basically the challenges that we have been facing as people with albinism have everything to do with accessing sunscreen lotions, because sunscreen lotions are a basic need each and every day. Yes. And also, as a condition which affects the eyes, most are challenged with accessing spectacles, most of them which come with a higher amount, so that I can be able to just get a pair of spectacles because I need maybe stronger lenses. Yes, yes, because albinism comes with visual impairment. Absolutely. Which is mild to maybe sometimes close to being blind.
And is that sort of a physical impairment, is that acknowledged, for example, in the Constitution, for example?
Definitely. The Constitution of Zimbabwe highlights that albinism is actually a disability. Yes. And of course, the idea behind is because every person with albinism has a visual impairment to some extent. Yes. So the only variation is that some have it is as mild and some have it as close to actually being blind. Yes. That is how albinism affects the eyes.
Okay.
Yes.
And then I will tell you, I'm going to tell you a little interesting story later on as to why I asked. Now, you're a very particularly strong person, and we've been talking, especially on platforms like Twitter, quite a bit. But before you were the strong, powerful person that you are, you came from a community where you were different. And growing up, how was growing up as a person living with albinism? I understand you spent part of your life in Mount Darwin, for example, and
Yes.
that's, with all due respect to Mount Darwin, in the back of Beyond, I actually
Yes.
spent time there as
Yes.
well, so I can say things about Mount Darwin. But, coming from that community and from a point of being looked at as different and possibly even ridiculed to becoming this person, how was growing up in a place like that?
Oh, okay. In my personal experience, I spent 9 years of my life without knowing that there are other people with albinism out there. So in 9 years, I started going to school where I was the only one with albinism. Where I stayed, I was the only one with albinism. And it is really sad to note that I didn't understand myself. Maybe I would have understood myself if I could look up to somebody. Maybe if the social media was going to expose me to quite a number of people with albinism. But unfortunately, when I was growing up, I never saw anybody with albinism, except for when I only turned 9, I saw a little baby and I was questioning. That's how I started to try to explain the situation, but it was really hard to try to explain to my peers my condition because I didn't understand, so I would end up with these kind of funny explanations. Oh, I woke up with powder on my face. Yes, maybe somebody had to pour hot water on me. I mean, these are things that really exist. And I feel that as children, it is very important that we are aware of ourselves. And also to the other children, it is very important that albinism is, people are taught about albinism even at a very little age, because we only learn about albinism when we're talking about reproduction in grade 6. That's really the sad part.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Now, then becoming, you get to accept yourself as a person and as a personality.
Yes.
But then going beyond to then become a voice for other people, what made you become that person to say, not only am I comfortable in my own skin, but I also want to go out there and make other people feel comfortable in their own skin?
Oh, okay. This actually, for me to really say I want to do this was because of my exposure to social media. Social media, you'd find that in as much as people with albinism are very few, we have a ratio of 1 to 20,000 people, 1 in 20,000 people with albinism worldwide, right? So you find that it's a rare condition. So you're going to meet very few people with that condition. And it is made worse by social media. We are very few on social media. And I wouldn't be surprised to see that somebody has never interacted with a person with albinism their whole lives. I would not be surprised. So it was a motivation to me that I should make it a normal day talking to say these kinds of people exist. Yes. And also that what is it exactly? How are we supposed to relate? Because there are a lot of superstitions that come, stereotypes that come with the condition.
We will get to the stereotypes because there's a lot of a lot that's happening, of course, on our continent with regards to that.
Yes.
But I will tell you, there's a word that leaves my producer debilitated, for want of a better word. Milton can't say this word. It's a flower, apparently, and it speaks to the movement that you're trying to push. And I was trying to ask my producer, what's the name of the flower? And he was going, blah, blah, blah. And then I thought, he's just been debilitated. Could you help Milton understand what flower this is and why you've picked this particular flower to speak to the movement that you're starting?
Oh, okay. So I started a movement called to raise awareness on albinism, that is through social media, like I said. Yes. I started a brand that is called Amaryllis Lord.
Okay.
Amaryllis Lord. Please get that.
Okay, Amaryllis Lord. Okay.
Yes, Amaryllis Lord. Yeah. Okay, so Amaryllis is a flower which resembles confidence. Yes. So that is how I got to pick that flower. And also the amaryllis flower comes in different colors, but specifically my color is pink because somehow my skin looks pale.
Yeah.
Yes. And my motto goes worth beyond beauty, which is trying to explain the confidence that is in this flower. Yes.
I will tell you another very beautiful thing. We grew up being told when you're different, when you're not like everybody else, when you're swimming upstream, there's something fundamentally wrong with you. But unique is beautiful. And I'm telling you this because in Harare, for example, one of the greatest features of Harare is when our jacarandas are in bloom. And our jacarandas are purple and they're absolutely fabulous and they erupt.
Yes.
But do you know in Harare there are 4 types of jacaranda which actually have albinism.
Oh, really?
And they've been noted as 4 very special trees in the city. And the flower enthusiasts actually wait for jacarandas to be in bloom, and they visit the 4, and they've actually managed to visit one of those. So different is beautiful. But I also know you're going beyond just Harare with your campaign, assisting people to get, for example, the sunscreens and what have you. You've also gone to Chimanimani.
Yes.
What was the pro of going to Chimani? What did you love about going to Chimanimani and meeting the communities there? And what were the negatives and or the hindrances? Because you're living in Harare and you may think you're living with albinism and you've got challenges until you go to another place and you think, my challenges are not challenges compared to these people.
Yes, my experience from Chimanimani, I went during the time of Cyclone Idai. Yes. It was really a sad situation, like we all know, but specifically I really wanted, as a passion, I really wanted to identify people with albinism so that I could at least, try to see where I could help them, because homes were destroyed, livelihoods were destroyed, people didn't have money, it all went away with water, whatever. So it was really important for me to just give a hand, which is why I went to Chimanimani and I identified quite a number of people with albinism and decided, okay, since I've identified the number, let me go and purchase the sunscreen lotions that is the way that I could help in that moment, of course, amongst other years.
So I'm also looking at the situation where we talked earlier about how you took certain sunscreens, or you wanted to help procure sunscreen for them. And what was the challenge that you got?
The biggest challenge was accessibility. Yes. Chimanimani did not have sunscreen lotions at all. So I had to go to the nearest town, which was Mutare. And unfortunately, the whole of Mutare, I spent the whole day moving up and down around Mutare. I could not get sunscreen lotions, and I actually had to tweet about it, asking, why is it that we do not have sunscreen lotions in Mutare? Is it that there are no people living with albinism in Mutare? It only took me to come back to Harare so that I could purchase sunscreen lotions to go back with them to Chimanimani.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. So you see, sometimes you think your particular grind is very difficult, then you come across other people and they're living in the same circumstance, but they're facing something, a hurdle that's even greater. And of course, wherever you are, we're having this discussion on living with albinism, especially in the age of COVID-19. And of course, sometimes you think your grind is very difficult, sometimes you think your life is very difficult, but other people have other hindrances that come into the lives they live. And we are living in the capital. A lot of people, sometimes you go out of the capital and there's a bit of resentment for us in the capital, and we think, what is wrong with us? It's not our fault we live in Harare. But sometimes a lot of very small things are centralized in the capital, so much so that other people somewhere else find things that we find as ordinary as rather luxuries to them, even if they need them not as luxuries. Imagine if we in the capital had to go to another city for a birth certificate or a tin of toothpicks. This is some of the stuff that other people outside of the capital have to endure. And of course, this is a story we're just being told. And I'm sure there's some issues around the touchy issues of superstition. Mm-hmm. We come from a very fortunate situation and circumstance where people do not harvest body parts of people living with albinism, because we are not those people. Yes. But sadly, and I've got people and friends, for example, who live in Tanzania, and they were telling me about that experience, especially there. My former roommate was telling me about how it was really an issue in Tanzania. When you read about that, and when you read about the struggles of other people living with albinism, over and above what you are struggling with, what goes through your mind, and what do you think fuels these superstitions?
Lack of knowledge. Yes. Like I'm saying, even it all starts from our educational system. We are not educated enough. We only learn about albinism in grade 6 during reproduction, but it is something that should be learned from a very, very young age, and it should grow in us. We should grow up knowing that there is albinism and what are the issues around albinism, so that we know how to treat the next person with albinism. Because the next time somebody says their body parts are used to cure, you can explain to them to say, no, albinism is just lack of pigment. It really has nothing to do with it having maybe chemicals or whatever to cure whatever disease that you want to cure.
Yeah. And I did say earlier on, I was gonna touch on something with regards growing up. And growing up it's a menace. It's a mess. Yes. and a lack of knowledge. When you talked about lack of knowledge, you were struggling with people looking at you and thinking you don't have melanin, and teasing you because you don't have melanin. On the other side of the pond, people were teasing me that I've got too much melanin. You see, so these people are just very, very ignorant people. Yeah. Whether you've got melanin, they're going to make fun of you. Whether you don't have melanin, they're going to make fun of you. What they don't know is you've got potential. And what I simply said was, you know what, I'm just going to beat you in class, and let's see where the melanin comes in. Yes. And it's an absolutely fascinating fact that you say, let's catch our children young, let's teach our children well to know that no matter how different or diverse you are what your potential is, and what your potential speaks to. Yes. But interesting. I'm getting here. It's getting a bit warm. I had one of my best friends in French class lived with albinism. And she's still around. She just disappeared. She's still around somewhere, and she was actually one of the best French students. Yes. And that's how we became close. But it's very difficult to befriend somebody living with albinism, because I don't know, maybe because we've got guards around ourselves to say, why are you coming to want to befriend me? I was friends with Mucha because I was in the same class as her, so it was very easy to interact. But I look at you, and I look at you from those heels to the top, and I'm like, wow, she is hot, and I wanna approach you. What do you do when a person approaches you? Because you've got a very interesting regimen, from what I know, when a guy comes to you and has the hots for you.
Okay, it's just like any normal person. I will take it very normally, but when there's a certain stage where you have to ask the person what they understand about albinism.
You see, you make people have a provisional test. What do you understand about albinism?
Yes.
So we have to...
this is to protect me.
Is it before I approach, is it when I approach you, or a few days after? Because we want to know whether I have to read up and know my stuff
You
just
want
like
me
we do.
to tell you secrets?
Yeah, because somebody's watching and they want to know. They want to know. Look, do I read before I approach her, or she's going to give me the test somewhere randomly in between a meal?
Okay. What a normal person would do is, you see something, usually you naturally want to know about it. Yes. It's very natural. You don't even have to it's not like I have to ask you so that you can go and research. No. But because you're interested in something, you just try to understand. You're fascinated. It's more like you're a child. Look at a child. A child will just want to know everything. Everything. So they'll probably ask the person who is there, why is it the car is blue? What color is this? Yes, it's very natural. So to a person that will approach me, right, it's just something that I would want to know to protect myself, because we have issues of stigma, discrimination, all those. So you really want to understand one's intentions. Yes, because I could talk to somebody and probably they still have the thought that my body parts are used to cure a disease. So maybe they
if
want
I have a relationship with you, I'll have money. That's another thing that was going around, especially in this country.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. So it is very important to guard yourself. In as much as it may be looking like something that will chase people away, but I just feel that it is actually very important so that you understand people's intentions.
Well, I speak for myself and my producer and my entire team to say, when we approached you, we saw the beauty and strength of the woman that we really wanted to talk to.
Thank you.
And that's the reason why we approached you.
Yes.
And we shall keep approaching you and we shall keep loving you. Never mind. And thank you so much for coming on Diplomatic Passport and for bearing it all and speaking from the heart and talking to our friends out there so that they know that in our diversity lies our absolute beauty. You are a beautiful soul. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Thanks. And thank you guys over there for joining us on Diplomatic Passport. As always, today was a very different talk, very intriguing. So don't forget that when you are trying to get your own basics, there are people like her that need other basics that really safeguard them from something that's absolutely important, something as basic as the sun. We celebrate the sun here in our country, but sometimes it's an impediment. But I should also tell you that it's a myth, it's a misnomer that we don't need sunscreen. As dark and juicy and blackberry as I am, I also need sunscreen because the sun has got certain elements that really we ought not to be exposed to that directly or for too long. So we all need a sunscreen, and let's all take care of ourselves and let's take care of our lives. I matter, you matter, and because you matter, we want to know what you're doing, where you are. Keep your contributions coming to my Twitter handle at ZimRobbie, that's ZimRobbie, and my email address on robinkundiwa@ztn.co.zw. And before I go, I'm going to ask you that you actually just give people your Twitter handle so that they know if people want to follow you and see those stunning pictures that I saw, because those pictures are okay, honestly, now I have to be honest. It's those pictures. I saw those pictures, I was like, oh my goodness. So apart from watching the story, I was also attracted by those pictures. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna talk to her.
Thank
you. Yeah, so give us your Twitter handle so that people can follow you.
Okay, my Twitter handle is Muskana Anokanika.
But why do you call yourself Muskana Anokanika though? Before we go.
Ikanika.
How?
Okay, that's another story.
No. So you're coming back to Diplomatic Passport.
Yes, that is what will make me come back. Yes. Oh, that is my handle, guys.
Well, Muskana Nukanika, you heard that. So follow Muskana Nukanika on Twitter, and then of course, as I said, we shall be having more and more of these discussions. And this is a face you're obviously going to see on Diplomatic Passport, because today we've granted her a Diplomatic Passport, and she'll be coming through time and time again. To all of you, thank you for staying at home, and thank you for staying safe. From me, ZimRobbie, ZimRobbie, and Muskana Nukanika, it's good night.